I never dreamed my life would change so dramatically in the middle of a frigid November evening. At 35, I saw myself as a diligent professional with a strong marriage to Andrew, my husband of 8 years. We lived comfortably in a suburb just outside of Denver, where I worked as an executive assistant for a rapidly expanding technology business. Life was predictable, stable, and, to be honest, somewhat monotonous. That all changed the night I stayed late at the office to complete an assignment for my employer, Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, or Ethan, as he requested I call him, was in his early 40s. He was intelligent, ambitious, and unquestionably handsome. It was no surprise that he was so successful, given his black hair, piercing blue eyes, and an air of confidence that seemed to permeate whatever room he entered. But, aside from his good looks, he was a demanding employer who wanted nothing less than excellence from his team, particularly from me, his right-hand lady. That evening, the workplace was strangely silent as I wrote away at my desk, with the only light coming from my computer screen and the dull glow of the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I assumed Ethan had left for a meeting some hours earlier. When I heard the elevator doors open, I believed it was only the cleaning personnel. But as I looked up, there he was, standing in the doorway of his office, staring at me with such intensity that it sent shivers down my spine. "Emily," he asked, his voice low and seductive. "What are you still doing here?" I quickly straightened up, attempting to appear composed. "I'm just wrapping up my presentation for tomorrow's meeting, Mr. Collins." I wanted to ensure everything was great. He smiled, a tiny, almost predatory grin that sent my heart racing. "You always go above and beyond, don't you? That's why I knew I could trust you." I felt a flush creep up my neck as I returned to my computer, attempting to concentrate on the task at hand. But I could feel his gaze on me, watching me, and it became more difficult to ignore the tension in the air. "I appreciate your dedication, Emily," he said, advancing closer until he was standing directly behind me. I could feel his body's warmth and the slight aroma of his perfume. "But don't work too hard. Don't you think it's important to have balance?" I swallowed hard, my fingers quivering slightly as I typed. "Yes, of course. I just want to ensure everything is perfect for tomorrow." He leaned forward, his breath warm on my ear. "Perfection is overrated," he muttered. "Sometimes it's the imperfections that make something truly special." My breath caught, and my thoughts raced as I struggled to understand what was happening. Is he flirting with me? Or was I dreaming things? I'd always liked Ethan from a distance, but I never imagined he saw me as anything more than his talented assistant. "Emily," he murmured, his voice gentler, almost compassionate. "Look at me." I hesitated, then slowly turned to face him. His blue eyes locked on mine, and I felt a wave of heat rush through me. There was something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before, something that made my heart race and my stomach flutter. "You're more than just an assistant," he said softly, reaching out to delicately push a strand of hair behind my ear. "You are special, Emily. And I believe you are aware of this." I opened my lips to reply, but nothing came out. I was too surprised and overwhelmed by the abrupt change in our relationship. Ethan had always been charming, but this was something new. This was personal. Before I could fully realize what was going on, he moved in and crushed his lips against mine. The kiss was gentle at first, almost tentative, as if he was giving me the opportunity to draw away. But when I didn't, he deepened the kiss, moving his palm to the back of my neck and keeping me still. My thoughts screamed at me to stop and shove him away, but my body failed me. I kissed him back, my hands moving to his chest and feeling the powerful, steady beat of his heart beneath my fingertips. I knew it was wrong, but all I could think about was how amazing it felt to be wanted, especially by a man like Ethan. When we finally separated, we were both breathing heavily, our hearts thumping in unison. I looked up at him, my head a jumble of emotions, guilt, want, and perplexity. "Ethan," I said, my voice trembling. "We can't. I am married, and you are my boss. I know, he said, his hand still on the back of my neck, his thumb lightly stroking my skin. But, Emily, I can't help how I feel. I've been battling it for a long time, trying to remain professional, but it's getting impossible. I want you, and I believe you want me too. His comments struck a shock through me, and my resolve weakened with each passing second. I knew I should put an end to this before it got any worse, but the reality was, I wanted him. I wanted him like I hadn't wanted anyone in a long time, not even Andrew. We have to be careful, I eventually managed to murmur, barely above a whisper. No one can know. He gave a slow, sensual smile that made my pulse skip a beat. It'll be our little secret, he assured, moving in for another kiss, this time with more urgency and passion. What followed was a haze of heat and yearning. Ethan led me to his office, the door clicking shut behind us as we succumbed to the intense yearning that had grown between us over months. It was exhilarating and thrilling in a way I hadn't felt in years. I felt alive, wanted, and entirely immersed in the moment. But, as the night progressed and the initial euphoria faded, reality crashed down around me. What did I do? How could I have let things get this far? I was married, and Ethan was my boss. Our actions could have terrible ramifications for both of us. As we lay there twisted together on the elegant leather couch in his office, I couldn't help but feel a gnawing sense of guilt. I thought about Andrew, the life we had created together, and the trust one had just broken. How could I confront him now, knowing what I had done? Ethan seemed to sense my distress. He leaned out and tenderly brushed a tear from my cheek. Emily, don't regret this, he said, his voice sincere. What we have is real. And I do not want you to feel terrible about it. But I do, I admitted, my voice breaking. Ethan, I am married. This is wrong, and we both understand it. He sighed and his expression softened. I understand it's complicated, and I know you're suffering with it. But I do not regret what happened tonight, and I don't believe you do either. Okay, we'll work it out together. I nodded, but I knew it would be difficult to figure out. We had crossed a line that could not be undone, and the consequences of our actions would undoubtedly follow us, no matter how hard we tried to keep them hidden. The following days were filled with powerful emotions, passion, guilt, and terror. Ethan and I continued to see each other in secret, meeting after work in his office and exchanging glances and touches throughout the day when no one was looking. It was exhilarating and exhausting. The continual anxiety of getting caught, as well as the weight of the falsehoods I was telling Andrew, were beginning to take their toll. Of course, Andrew saw the change in me. He inquired if everything was all right, if anything was bothering me, but I convinced him that it was just job stress, and that I was great. But I wasn't okay. I was entangled in a web of dishonesty that was progressively closing around me, and I had no idea how to get out. One evening, after another late-night rendezvous with Ethan, I returned home to find Andrew waiting for me in the living room. He seemed concerned, his brow furrowed as he watched me enter through the door. Emily, we need to talk, he stated, his tone serious. My heart fell. I was dreading this moment, when the lies would begin to unravel. What's wrong? I inquired, attempting to maintain a calm voice. Something's been off with you lately, he said, standing up and approaching me. You've been distant and distracted. I can't help but think you're keeping something from me. I felt a rush of panic flood over me, and my thoughts raced for a logical explanation. But, before I could answer, he proceeded. Does it work? Is there anything going on with your boss? You've been staying up late at work recently. I gulped hard, my pulse racing. It's just work, Andrew, I lied with a forced smile. You understand how demanding Ethan can be. He's been pushing us all hard to complete this assignment. Andrew looked at me for a long time, seeking for any signs of dishonesty. I held my breath, praying that he would believe me and not push any further. Finally, he sighed and let his shoulders relax somewhat. I'm just worried about you. I don't want you to burn yourself out. I'm fine, I told him, going forward to wrap my arms around him and bury my face against his chest. I promise, I'm fine. But as I stood in his arms, shame nearly overtook me. How long can I keep this up? How long until the truth was out and everything came crashing down around me? A few weeks later, something happened that changed everything. Ethan and I were in his office, our usual meeting site, when he abruptly moved away from me, his demeanor serious. Emily, we need to talk, he continued, his voice unusually gloomy. What's wrong? I said, my heart skipping a beat. I've been offered a position at a company in San Francisco, he told me, his eyes searching mine for a reaction. It's a huge opportunity, and I've decided to take it. The news struck me like a ton of bricks. What about San Francisco? It was across the country. If he departed, our affair would be finished. We would not see each other again. When are you leaving? I said, my voice shaking. In 2 weeks, he said, reaching out to hold my hand. I want you to come with me, Emily. His statements stunned me. Go with him? Leave everything behind, including my career, spouse, and life in Denver. It was an enticing offer, but also terrifying. What will happen if I do? Could I honestly begin a new life with Ethan, knowing the harm it would cause? I don't know if I can do that, I said quietly, tears streaming down my cheeks. I have a life here, with a husband. I can't just walk away from everything. I understand, he replied quietly, his thumb wiping away my tears. But I cannot stay here, Emily. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I must take. But I do not want to lose you. I gazed at him with a broken heart. I knew I couldn't go with him, but the thought of losing him and terminating our relationship was almost unbearable. Maybe it's for the best, I eventually answered, my voice trembling. Maybe this is our chance to walk away before things get even more complicated. He moaned, his shoulders sagging in defeat. I do not want to say goodbye, Emily. But if it is what you desire, I will accept your choice. Tears flowed down my cheeks as I leaned in to kiss him one more time, putting all of my feelings into that one moment. When we separated, I knew it was over. This romance had occupied a chapter of my life, and now it was time to move on. In the weeks that followed, I fought to reconcile with what had transpired. Ethan went for San Francisco, and I immersed myself in my work, attempting to repair the life I had nearly ruined. Andrew never learned about the affair, and I was determined to keep it that way. I had made a terrible mistake, but I was determined to restore the damage and set things right. Looking back, I understand how close I was to losing everything. The romance with Ethan had been a tornado of passion and desire, but it was also a risky game, and I was fortunate to have escaped uninjured. I learned an important lesson about the value of honesty and resisting temptation. As I move on, I am more motivated than ever to be the greatest wife I can be to Andrew, to treasure the life we've created together. I know I'll never forget what occurred, but I'm determined to learn from my mistakes and create a future built on trust and love. And as I sit in my office, the memories of that November night still fresh in my memory, I am reminded of how quickly things can change, how a single decision may shift the path of your life forever. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to start over and put things right. And this time, I am not going to waste that opportunity.